Diet is such an underrated part of football, but here's the thing, what players don't realise is how much it can actually change your game. We're talking about the fuel that drives performance, recovery and mindset. And honestly, I couldn't think of anyone better to chat about this with than Marc Pugh. He's been there from non-league football all the way to the Premier League. He knows exactly what it takes to perform at the top, and he's an expert when it comes to diet, consistency and discipline. So today we're diving into his journey, Bournemouth's rise under Eddie Howe, and the truth about how food can transform your game. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel below. It's completely free and helps the channel grow. Let's get straight into it. What do you think the drive was for you to actually go on and become a footballer? Is there anything that you can relate to back in that early period that separated you maybe from others that did not necessarily make it in comparison to yourself?
Yeah, I loved winning. I loved that feeling of winning and that team environment and sort of working hard for your teammate. And, I've always been a big believer in if you put the work in, you get the rewards. And I just love working hard. I love scoring a goal. That feeling of scoring a goal is irreplaceable. Other than obviously getting married and having kids, but scoring a goal is a fantastic feeling. And especially when obviously you haven't got as big a crowd in your younger grassroots days. You've got one man and his dog on the sideline, but just scoring a goal and, your mum and dad saying you can have a pound the goal or what have you is fantastic. So I just always had the motivation to go out, whether it was raining, cold, horrible. And I love that competitive environment. So, I mean, football, it ticks all the boxes for me, and it's got so many emotions that come with the game as well, and you just can't replace that.
Was there a moment when you realised you could actually make this as a career? Can you reflect on that time?
Yeah, I mean, I did, from the age of 16 to 18, I spent my scholarship days with Burnley, and with being a Burnley fan as well, it's all I ever wanted to do. I wanted to play for Burnley Football Club. And at 16, I was on the bench in the Carabao Cup at Villa Park. Stan Turnant was the manager at the time. He really liked me. I was on the bench against Preston and West Ham as well. But he left the club, and Steve Cotterill came in, and new manager, new ideas. He didn't really see eye to eye with me as a player. And at 18 years old, he told me I wasn't good enough to make it as a professional footballer, which was a real kick in the teeth. But it was probably that kick up the backside I needed to really grit my teeth. It built my character, built my resilience, and looking back, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because at the time I was really down, I was disappointed. I was struggling for a few days really, but then I began to open up to people, began to speak to my parents, coaches, and through a connection in my younger days from Rosendale Academy, Andy Sasimovic, he was called. He had someone who was called Ian Miller, Dusty Miller, who was the assistant manager of Bury at the time, and Chris Casper was the manager. And he just, through that connection, I got a trial, and I really impressed, and Bury signed me, and I then went on to play 45 games in League Two at 19 years old. And I look back and I think if I'd have maybe stayed at Burnley, I'd have been playing reserve and youth team football for a long, long time, maybe 2-3 seasons if I'd have signed a new contract, rather than getting that experience. And from that, going back to your question, playing 45 games at League Two, I knew I was good enough to make it as a professional footballer, because it was a really successful season. But I believe you've never truly made it. You've got to keep proving the doubters wrong. You've got to keep pushing. Even when I got to the Premier League, I knew it wasn't the easy bit. Don't get me wrong. It was a roller coaster, but getting there is one thing, but you got to stay there as well and keep performing week in, week out. So, I never ever felt like I'd made it. You've just got to keep pushing and growing.
Where do you think that mindset comes from then, Mark, in terms of not being complacent based on your achievements, going up the ladder in terms of the opportunity at Bury, and then you mentioned the Premier League and that element of wanting to always improve and not being completely sure that this is everything just yet. You want to keep adding to what you've got. Where do you think that mindset comes from, based on the reflection of maybe your upbringing or your outlook towards football? Can you relate to anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, my mum and dad were always very encouraging, but I really had to work on my mindset from a young age, obviously dealing with rejection and setbacks of game release from a football club. I listen to a lot of podcasts on mental resilience, and obviously you have to deal with things, whether it be on the field, off the field, getting told you're not good enough, being out of the team, and all these things add up, and you've just got to develop that bulletproof mindset and just educate yourself as much as possible. And it probably, when I was younger, I was probably a little bit mentally weaker than I am today. Maybe if I had a bad performance, it had really affected me. I'd, dwell on it for a little bit too long. But as I began to really develop that strong mindset of when I've had a bad touch, when I've had a bad pass, or a bad game, I'd try and flip it as quick as possible and think back to the moment where I was performing well, where I scored a goal, where I was playing with confidence. Because if you dwell on that moment for too long, the negative moment, then it can become infectious, and your mind's a powerful thing. Whatever you tell it, I believe you can create your reality with your mindset. So I've got to always keep telling myself positive things. And when I retired from football as well, if you sit around for too long and don't busy yourself with things to try and help people be productive, then you might just sit there and think, oh, if only I'm still playing football. So I keep myself busy. I keep working on my strengths, but I work even harder on my weaknesses as well. So it's always about having that growth mindset, because we hear a lot about having a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. From the age of probably about 19, 20, I always worked on having that growth mindset, goal setting, visualization, doing my daily affirmations and journaling in the evening as well for the following day. So yeah, I think all the small things add up to big results in the end. So I always try and focus on the small percentages every day.
How does one go from Bury to Bournemouth then? Do you want to maybe explain the transition there? And obviously there's been clubs in between your move to Bournemouth, but can you elaborate on the experiences that you had during that period that had made you develop that mindset you've kind of mentioned, but also made you more aware of the league and some of the traits and skills that you need to compete at that elite level?
Yeah, how long have you got? It, Very. I'd played 45 games that season, but I got offered a new contract just after Christmas. And me being a young lad, I was just following the advice of my agent, and he said, "You just concentrate on your football. I'll do the rest. Don't sign your contract. You've got interest, and just focus on your football." So I just told the manager that, and yeah, I got left out of the team for a little bit, and the Bury fans caught wind that I'd rejected my contract. So I got my car got scratched. My wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, she was working in Bury, and she got hurled abuse at. So that was a really difficult moment, tough, challenging, on the relationship and everything else as well. And you don't want your girlfriend to be getting brought into your job road, you know what I mean? So that was tough. And after leaving Bury, I signed for Shrewsbury. They'd just gone into the new stadium. They offered me a 3-year contract. It ticked a lot of boxes for me, and they were trying to invest in the squad. They had high hopes of getting promotion that season. So I thought it's a great opportunity as well to move away from home, develop that character building, that mindset. It's 19 years old, moving away from home is a big challenge, especially, with your girlfriend as well. And it was something I was really passionate about doing. And it was going really well for the first season. So I had a really good year. Again, a lot of interest in me. And then going into my second season, I was playing on a bit of an injury. I had a labral tear in my groin and tendonitis in my Achilles. And the manager, Gary Peters at the time, because we were playing Rotherham away, and Rotherham away it's not a great stadium. It was peeing it down, it was windy, and I just said, "Gaffer, I'm going to have to come off." So he thought I was faking the injury. He said, "Nah, you're sacking it off," and he battered me. Anyway, I got a scan the following day, and it showed that I had a labral tear in my groin and I had tendonitis in my Achilles. I've been playing on it for a while and trying to get through it, but it just got to a point where I just needed to stop and recover and get it right. So got that right, and then Gary Peters, the manager at the time, got sacked. Paul Simpson came in, and he was a great coach, Paul, and we got on really well, but he brought his son to come in and play on the wing in my position. So I got a phone call on my honeymoon at the time. I was with my wife, off my agent saying, "Oh, Paul Simpson wants to get rid of you. You're not in his plans." So I had all the questions off my wife, where we're going to go from here, what we're going to do with the honeymoon to pay for. We were living month to month because it wasn't a a massive contract. And I just said, whether she must have been thinking at the time, this guy is just, I just said, look, I believe I'm going to play in the Premier League. I really do. And I have that ultimate self-belief, I back the ability. You can be a bit naive sometimes, but I knew I was working hard and I had that purpose in life to reach the Premier League. So that was that. I left Shrewsbury and still on my honeymoon, I got a phone call again 3 days later from Hereford saying, look, we want to sign you on a year contract. And I just said, this is make or break now. I'm 23 years old nearly. I've got to really make a go of it. And that season, I was traveling 2 hours every day to Hereford from Shrewsbury, and I was recovering properly. I was ticking as many boxes as I could. I was in a little car school, so it made it a little bit more bearable. And that season, I scored 14 goals and got 11 assists, and 3 of those goals were against Bournemouth, and 2 in the home fixture and 1 in the away fixture. And Eddie Howe took a shining to me. He got a scout to come and watch me on 6 occasions, and I still speak to the scout every now and again to this day. And he said he had me watching you at all the horrible games, Notts County away, Grimsby away, because he wanted to see what type of character you were. Could you dig in? Could you, if you're losing, I mean, I think we're 3-0 down in one game, but I never stopped running. That's one of his comments. And I mean, all those different instances really developed that mindset and, built me to be the character I am today.
And how do you convince your wife that you mentioned then in terms of your honeymoon, who's kind of, relocated? And the reason I asked this, Mark, is the fact that I think this kind of goes under the carpet around contracts, and the words that you said then was kind of living month to month based on the contract that you had earlier in your career and that opportunity and that thought process of trying to get to that elite level. How do you convince your family when you have a little bit of a settled nature to move right down south to Bournemouth? Can you remember that moment when that scout and that offer was given to you at Bournemouth?
Yeah, I think first of all, you've got to convince yourself. But yeah, I mean, my wife is a very positive person. She listens to a lot of audiobooks, podcasts, and she's always looking to develop herself as well. But yeah, when we moved to Bournemouth, it was a really tough one because we were gradually making our way further down south, and it's like 6 hours from our home. And we've raised both our kids in Bournemouth as well. So she had no help. She just cracked on. She was absolutely incredible. And I believe I wouldn't have got to where I was with my career if it weren't for her, because, when she fell pregnant the day we moved to Bournemouth, it was a nice surprise, but at the time it wasn't planned. She was due to start a job with Halifax, and we were due to just crack on. So we had to adapt, we had to grow up, and I needed to make it work because I wasn't only providing for myself and my wife, I was providing for my kids now. And when she gave birth, I think it was to our second, the day after we had Carlisle United away. And for anyone that knows distance between Bournemouth and Carlisle, it's ridiculous. I had 4 hours sleep. I was on the coach, Carlisle away. My wife spent 2 days on her own with the kids. And that is tough, but I was doing it for them, and I'm a massive family person. And if I have to, do something for my family, I'll do it. And I just needed to make it a success because up to the age of probably 25, financially, it was month to month. It was paying your mortgage. It was paying your food bills. Because in League 2, League 1, unless you're like in a massive, there's some big clubs now in League 1, but back then it wasn't a lot of money you were getting paid. You were just doing what you could to get by and just enjoy the moment. So yeah, that was it was challenging, but it's a roller coaster ride, and I wouldn't change a minute of it.
What made your time at Bournemouth so special?
It was the environment, the lads. So most of the team that went up to the Premier League had played in League 1 as well. I think 10 lads that played against Villa in the first Premier League game when we got promoted to the Premier League played in League 1 or played in the Championship. So, and the previous season. So we kept the squad together. Really special. We spent a lot of time away from the pitch together as well. So we had a real good teamwork ethic, team unity. Eddie Howe instilled that into us, and Eddie Howe made Bournemouth special as well because he was just phenomenal. His coaching style, his attention to detail, everything was absolutely incredible. It was a family club. They brought everyone together, and we were just all pushing in the same direction. We wanted success. We wanted to change not only our lives but our families' lives as well. Because when you get to the Championship and then the Premier League, not only is it financially rewarding, but your life becomes so much better because you're looking forward to watching Match of the Day in the evening and celebrating a win with a family so much more. And you want to test yourself against the best players in the world. That was always my goal. It was never financially. It was like, look, I want to play against these world class players. You like De Bruyne's, Rooney's, Ibrahimovic, and the best players in the world. And I thrived off it. There was some guys who got outclassed and who got absolutely battered, but that's what you want. You want to be successful, and you got to stay there as well.
What do you think it was under Eddie Howe that enabled that momentum to occur? So if you think of Bournemouth at that time, fairly small club in comparison to some of the big football clubs that you might come across in League One, as well as the Championship. Well, what do you think the manager did to install that belief that you could actually go on and make it into the Premier League? Is there anything that you can recall based on that time, going through the promotion and the challenges up and down the league that you can relate to based on the mindset of Eddie Howe and the team at that time?
Yeah, it was always looking to evolve, both on and off the field. So we get all training recorded. And for example, if you would get a forfeit, say you were doing a rondo and you got a forfeit and he said do 10 press ups and you did 9, he would see that, he'd watch everything back and they'll be in the office the next day. He'd be like, why did you do 9 press ups? Don't cut corners. So I think not cutting corners and doing everything properly, whether it be your gym work, your recovery, your passing drills, everything needed to be pristine. And if it wasn't, then it'd be on you like a ton of bricks. But he was the nicest person in the world off the field, but he expected perfection. Obviously, you're not going to be perfect, but he wanted to push towards that, just to try and make sure that everyone was on board. Everyone was, working hard. It was non-negotiable, really. You got to work hard for each other and treat every training session like it was your last, and train as you play, as he always said. And from pre-match analysis to, on the Monday morning, we'd always do a debrief. He'd get players in individually. He'd help them with the performance, tell them where they went wrong, but constructively. And then we'd put it into practice on the training ground. And he'd do the actual session, but then he'd be staying out for 45, 50 minutes later after the session, trying to improve, whether it be attackers, finishing drills. And he was just always trying to evolve and better himself. And it shone through, it really did. And it made his players, even if you're out of the team. So I spent large periods out of the team as well, especially in the Premier League. I had to do a lot of running sessions on Saturday morning when the team are preparing for a game, and that's mentally really challenging. So for him to be able to keep everyone happy when they're not playing as well, it's such an art and such a talent he has. So yeah, he was top class.
Would you say he was obsessed on football?
Obsessed about being the best and football and self-development and developing players as well. He can't switch off, never switches off. He's just football 24/7. Even when we got promoted from the Championship to the Premier League, obviously that evening everyone went out and they had a good time and stuff, but I've no doubt in my mind he was plotting and planning for that first game in the Premier League that evening, and making sure his cards were all in line just to make a success of it.
Does that impact maybe home life? And I know obviously we can kind of look at this from a distance, and there's that obsession to win and drive, but surely does that impact the other areas of oneself? And I don't want to kind of bring a downer to it because I don't think that that's right, but being obsessed to win constantly, having a fixed focus, surely does that impact footballers in other ways? Because obviously Eddie Howe is an example, but there's many other examples of athletes committed and driven to achieve at those elite levels. What are your thoughts on that as a whole?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. So an obsession is, it can be dangerous, but if you use it as the right fuel, I was obsessed with winning games and preparing properly. And especially now I'm obsessed with my nutrition and what I put in my body. But as long as you can put it to one side. So on Saturday, you're obsessed with winning, you want to win that game. But if that's affecting your weekend then, and you're down and you're not speaking to your family, then that obsession becomes really dangerous. But if you can just put that to one side and enjoy Sunday with your family, and then Monday morning comes around, you're back on it, and right, how can I improve? How can I do better? We obviously lost on Saturday. Let's analyse where we went wrong and put that to bed and move on to the next game. That's a healthy obsession. But yeah, if it can, if it consumes you and you're constantly thinking about it, I think you've got to have a bit of a switch off mode. I did that really well, actually. If we'd lost, yeah, it'd be frustrating. But once I left the stadium, like, right, I'm going home to my family now. I've got to be mindful. I've got to be a good husband, a good dad, and just make sure that that's not infectious, because personalities are infectious. If you surround yourself with negative people all the time, you're going to become quite negative. If you surround yourself with positive people, then that positivity shines through. So yeah, I think it's a really difficult question to answer, and it can be a bit destructive if you are too obsessed with something.
Just on that then, so you mentioned Championship to Premier League. Was there ever a moment during that period where you realised, okay, this is actually going to happen?
So obviously the Championship's a grueling season, and you see the results all the time. You never know what results going to happen. It's so unpredictable sometimes. But we played Birmingham and beat them 8-0 in our promotion winning season, and we absolutely battered them. And then we went and beat Fulham 5-1. And when we beat Fulham 5-1 away from home at Craven Cottage, you're thinking, yeah, we're a team that is in great form. We haven't been beaten in ages. We then went away to Reading away, played poorly, but grinded. I think it was a 1-0 win out. It might have been 1-0 or 2-1. And we just had a real resilience about us and that winning mentality. And you can easily develop a losing mentality when that confidence is low, but we were just winning games, whether it be 8-0 or 1-0. And we just had a know-how to see games out, and we were strong, robust. You looked all over our field and it was full of winners, people who wanted to work hard for each other, people who'd never played in the Premier League before. And you could just see that drive and that real determination to reach the top and test yourself against the best. So yeah, I'd say the Birmingham 8-0 and the Fulham 5-1 was massive turning points in our mindset, because once you've got that mindset of we're really onto something here, and it's all right if there's one or two doing it, but if you've got a whole team, even your subs, just the subs, like, that was what was incredible about this promotion winning season. All the subs, some you get like just sat that can't be bothered with it, but the subs like really geeing the lads up and willing everyone on, and we were incredible that season as a team.
I remember that 8-0 win, Mark, just because I'm a Birmingham fan. And there's a running joke actually in my family. It's funny you mentioned this. My sister's been to one Birmingham City game, and that Birmingham City game was when Bournemouth beat them 8-0. So there's a running joke that the only game she's gone to is she's seen that happen for the home team. But a real good indicator at that moment. I think the reverse leg as well. I think in the reverse leg, Birmingham went 2-0 up, and I think you ended up coming back 4-5-2, if I'm right. And there was a moment where it was like, this is actually happening for Bournemouth.
Yeah, we even when we went 1 and 2 down, some years, and when you're in a bad run of form, you just think, you don't see a goal here. But we always felt like we could score a goal. Matt Ritchie coming on his left, he had a wonderful left foot, and Callum Wilson, Jan Kermigan, and you had Brett Pittman as well. So you had 3 strikers who could easily bang 20 goals a season each. And it's like, who'd you played? Because they're all fantastic goal scorers in their own right. But we just, the rotations we had, the style of play, the patterns of play we used to work on, it just suited our team down to the ground. And it must have been a nightmare to deal with.
Interesting. And that moment of getting promoted then, and you mentioned you celebrate and you're in a new environment. What are you thinking based on the fact that you're now in the Premier League and it's your goal and ambition and it's everything that you've dreamed of and you believed when you were, earlier in your career? What are you thinking as a player? Is there a determination to go and play, or are you worried about potentially being replaced? I'm interested on what your thought was in that moment leading into the Premier League.
Yeah, I didn't have one worry. I I'm like, I was just like, I've got a point to prove now. I've got to prove myself all over again. And I knew I'd played like 30 odd games that season in the championship winning season. I knew under Eddie Howe, because I was this type of character and he knew I'd work hard, whatever. I knew he'd give me an opportunity. And if I got that opportunity, I weren't going to let it pass me by. I think that's the mindset you've got to have. You can't worry about who's coming in and this and that. You've just got to prove your worth in the team and control the controllables. You can't control who they're going to sign. I mean, there's a running joke that they've tried replacing me so many times. I mean, we signed Jordan Hyde, we signed wingers all the time. We signed Wani Turby I think he was from Atletico Madrid, and Raquel made. There's been loads of players come across, and you just keep working. I mean, there's one season, I think it was either the second or third season in the Premier League, I didn't kick a football until the 24th of November, and that's a long time not to kick a ball when the season started. If it's starting in August. So I was doing my running sessions on my Saturday. We just signed Jordan Hyde for 15 million, and he was playing, and I was out of the team. I weren't even in the squad, weren't on the bench. So that really did test me. Doing those running sessions and gym sessions while the fans are coming into the stadium. I'm in the gym upstairs, and we can feel the atmosphere outside. You're not preparing for a game, and you're going watching the game, and you're not leaving the stadium till 6 o'clock. Especially when you want the lads to win, but when they've got that win and you're not even involved in the squad, it's really mentally challenging. So when I got the opportunity, 24th of November, I think it was either 24th or 27th, I started my first game against Leicester, and I scored the goal. We beat them 1-0, and then I think I played nearly every game after that. And it's about being ready. It's about being ready in your body, physically, mentally, emotionally as well. So we've got to tick as many boxes as we can, over the course of, whether you want to be a footballer, businessman or woman. The same principles apply. We've got to have that incredible self-confidence, self-belief, and willingness to go above and beyond, and just be ready when called upon.
So for those that might not be familiar with kind of the cycle week by week as a professional footballer, you mentioned then gym work and running. Are you running on the Saturdays because you're preparing your body to perform? And obviously, if you don't play on a Saturday, do you have to ensure that you're burning energy based on the carb load or the protein load that you've had to enhance your performance on match day? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, so there's the sports scientists now in football are brilliant. You get all your data measured. So over the course of a week, you get measured with your high speed running, your sprints, your decels, distance covered. And by the end of the week, you need to cover a certain amount of distance to make sure that your fitness levels are topped up. And if you're not playing a game on a Saturday, for example, you'd run probably between 11 and 13.5K, depending on what position, how fit you are, and that kind of thing. So you've got to be ready. If you're not doing a session on Saturday, so Friday, so the working week will be for Bournemouth. We had Monday, so the lads would do they do a recovery session if they played on the Saturday, and just a short and sharp session. And the lads that didn't play would do a intense session. It'd be short, 5-a-sides, a little bit of running. And then Tuesday, Wednesday would be our really tough days. We'd do between 8 and 10K with the whole squad. Thursday would be off. And then Friday, it'd be like a really relaxed day, set pieces, preparation for the game. And then Saturday will be the game. So if you weren't playing in the game on a Saturday, and you've had a day off Thursday, you have a relaxed day Friday, and then you didn't do anything on Saturday and Sunday, it's a long period not to do any running. So you've really got to top up and get a good running session in, get your gym work. And I was one of these people as well that if I wasn't playing, I'd always ask to play in the 21s games, just to top up that fitness on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, because you can never replicate that match day fitness. You can do all the running in the world, but 11v11 is a complete different ball game. You've got to stay fit, because like I said, if I didn't kick a ball until the 24th, 27th of November, and I didn't do these things, these small things will add up to big results, as I always say. You've got to do the small things, and if you do it well, then you'll be ready when called upon.
You mentioned that Leicester game. On your experiences and reflection of the Premier League, but what do you think the differences are between the Premier League and Championship? And everyone talks about the intensity and everything around kind of the fast pace nature of the league. But is there anything that you picked upon from your experience that might be different to that point, and kind of a moment where you've gone, okay, this is how this is different at that elite level?
Yeah, we can speak technical, tactical, physical, all we want, but mentally, the best players in the world, the mindset's so strong and their awareness as well. So your best players in the world are always aware of what's around them. Obviously, in the Premier League, the pace of some of the players are just phenomenal. Like you look at your Kyle Walkers of the world, Mbappe's at the elite top, Ronaldo's, the rapid and the strong physical. But it's a mindset. I mean, you look into Ronaldo, who's like, your Ronaldos and your Messis of the world, their mindset to just keep going and going and going and improving is next level. So, yeah, I mean, you will find as well in the Premier League that the strikers, especially, they won't need two or three chances, every game. You only need one chance that's in the back of the net. Whereas in the Championship, as a defender, you might get away with one or two, but it's very rare you get away with two or three, that's for sure, because you're at Isak to the world, and your top strikers, Mo Salah gets a chance 9 times out of 10, it's in the back of the net. So yeah, making sure that you're concentrating at all times is really key in the Premier League.
I've got a couple of quick fire questions. So first one is, who's the toughest defender you've played against?
Yeah, with me being a left winger, I'd have to say Kyle Walker. In his prime, he was different class, and it didn't help that City kept a lot of the ball as well. So you had to do a lot of the running the other way, and you didn't get much opportunity to get at him. So yeah, with Kyle, you had to use your brain against him, and I used to have to come in the pocket because I knew he'd beat me for pace. So you just have to drag him into areas he didn't want to go, which is really difficult when they have most of the possession. So yeah, Kyle Walker was tough, and Valencia as well, Antonio Valencia at right back, really tough, strong, quick, athletic, had everything. So yeah, I'd say them too.
In terms of the favourite ground that you played at, is there anything that stands out based on your experiences?
Yeah, just for pure atmosphere. St James's Park was fantastic, and Newcastle amazing. The atmosphere at Upton Park was incredible. So them two for atmosphere. But your history of your Old Traffords, your Anfields, and then your newer stadiums, the Emirates and the Etihad. It's so hard. They're all wonderful in their own way.
Who's the best player you've played with?
Best player I played with? Oh, good question. Yeah, there's a few that stand out. When Jack Wilshere was fit, he was fantastic. Jermaine Defoe was a great finisher. Nathan Ake, fantastic defender. So yeah, I mean, in different positions, you've got midfielder Jack Wilshere. I did have a short spell when I was 16 at Burnley with Paul Gascoigne. So Gaz, well, that was back in the day. I didn't get to train with him, but I seen him train, and he was just wonderful to watch. He was elegant on the pitch, and he was coming towards the end of his playing days. So there's a few there, yeah, and they're all really special in their own.
You mentioned Nathan Ake. Do you get the sense playing with players like that who will move on to a potential top 6 club? Did you get a feeling when you're training and playing with them?
I knew he was good, but the more games he got, he was just elegant on the ball. He was quick. He was never phased. He wasn't the biggest 6'1", but he won his aerial duels, and you just knew he's one of these players that was going to go on to be excellent. I didn't realize he was going to be as good as he was, and still is. And go on to play for Man City. Probably, I don't know how many appearances he's made, because that's such a tough squad to break into. But he's such a great lad as well, and he deserves all the credit he gets, because he's one of these types of lads that he's never going to change. He's just a family man, down to earth, goes on the football field, training field, does his job, goes home, spends time with his family, chills out on his Xbox or whatever he does, and yeah, he's top lad.
What's tougher, a relegation battle or a promotion push?
I've never really had a relegation battle. I don't think. I must have done. I'm one of these types of people that live in the moment, and I don't pay too much attention. When we're in the Championship and we're really pushing for that Premier League, I was looking at the table a little bit more than I usually do. But yeah, I sort of live in the moment, and I love the I love the emotion of that promotion push. League One to the Championship, Championship to the Premier League. Prior to that, I was a mid-table, boring type of player. Shrewsbury, yeah, mid-table. Hereford, mid-table. Who else was there? Bournemouth, when I signed for them in League One, mid-table first season. No, playoffs. First season lost in the semi-finals on penalties, which was a stinker. That was horrible. And yeah, mid-table, and then Eddie Howe came back, got promoted. So yeah, it was yeah, never had any relegation battles. And when Bournemouth got relegated, I'd left the club the season before, so I got away with it.
Maybe you should have changed the word into that, more trying to stay in the league rather than get promoted. Maybe that could have been a word a little bit more different. But yeah, it's interesting based on perspective, because you're trying to go up, and then obviously the KPIs change when you're in the Premier League. So
It's always harder to win a game. So yeah, I'm guessing that promotion push is a lot tougher.
and last one on the quick fire. What is one game that you'll never forget?
There's two. Gonna name two. So the night we got promoted against Bolton, we beat them 3-0. I scored the first goal. At the Vitality, the stadium erupted, and we knew we was going to go on to win that game once we got the first goal. Absolutely incredible night. And then the 4-3 victory against West Ham, I scored my first Premier League goal that game as well. Callum Wilson got his hat trick. We beat him 4-3, and that was our first Premier League win as well. So yeah, those two moments stand out for me.
How did you find maybe coming towards the end of your career then? So you mentioned obviously leaving Bournemouth during a tricky period around COVID. How did you find that as a player, kind of coming out in kind of challenging circumstances based on, the career that you've had to that point?
Yeah, it's always challenging when you come away from something you've loved for so long. I left Bournemouth. I was coming up towards the end of my contract with Bournemouth, and I had an open conversation with Eddie. I'd have loved to stay at Bournemouth Football Club, but because I was about 32, 33 at the time, and the club didn't want to offer me an extended contract. So I just said to him, look, if I'm not playing any football, can I go out on loan in January? And I went on loan to Hull for 6 months, did really well. They were going to sign me at the end of the season, but Nigel Atkins, the manager, left. So I didn't sign for Hull. And then I had to do my own pre-season pretty much, because no club really came in for me or anything like that. So I was sort of having a bit of a panic up. And then with about a week of pre-season left, QPR decided to sign me. I signed for QPR, did a week of pre-season, and then I played against Stoke on the Saturday, which Stoke City away, for anyone that's played there, it's a bit of a very direct. You've got to run about, and I got on for about half an hour or something. So yeah, but went to QPR, and when I signed my contract with QPR, there was stipulation in my contract that if I played 26 games, I'd get a new contract on the same deal I was on. I was on 25, and then COVID hit on the Friday. I was due to start the game on Saturday. So after a mini break, we went back to a mini preseason. We had 9 games left of the season. We were 7th. We're in a promotion push. Got myself fit. 3 days before the games were starting back up, the manager pulled me and said the club, because we're no fans in the stadium, the club aren't going to play you for that last game to keep you on the same contract you are. We've got to sell Abir Eze, Brian Samuel, and yourself. We're not going to play you for that game. So it was a bit of a kick in the teeth. And after spending a bit of time away, I decided to sign for Shrewsbury, just to go back to see if I still had the love of the game to carry on. And I signed to Shrewsbury on the Sam Ricketts and really enjoyed my football. But we ended up playing MK Dons. I scored that night as well, but they scored really late on, and he lost his job. And Steve Cottrell came in, the manager who released me as a young kid at Burnley. It was kind of, the stars were aligning, and he never really played me. So it was like, I just thought, now's the time to do something else. And it was the same time where the LFE came into me and said, do you want to deliver workshops for aspiring athlete going into the academies on nutrition, fueling for performance, mindset? And I just thought, if I let this opportunity pass me by, I'm going to prolong my football career and I might not have something set up for after football. So it kind of felt like the right time, and I'm absolutely loving what I'm doing now, to be fair. So yeah, I'm work.
If we bring you back to that example then that you used at QPR around kind of the political nature of contracts and money and trying to save, you know, certain income based on games played and kind of all that kind of political perspective and that micro politics that happens at a football club. Is that a common thing that happens, Mark? Because as football fans, we're not really aware of some of those things that might impact a potential starting lineup or coming towards the end of a kind of a season where bonuses are kind of apparent in contracts. Is that a popular occurrence, or is it just something that maybe was just there for you?
There's all sorts goes on in contracts, to be fair, and it's very political. Um, some of the contracts you won't believe, especially back in the day. I'm not aware if things have changed over the last 4 or 5 years since I've retired, but yeah, there's loads of stipulations, and you see all the time with buyout clauses and stuff like that, and people having 60, 70 million pound buyout fees. And I know there's been loads of instances, and with myself, I never really I never really thought too much into the contract side of things. I just sort of left my agent to deal with all that type of thing. But knowing what I know now, I'd probably try and sort my own contracts out, to be honest, because you never know what you're signing up for if you don't read through them properly. And yeah, it's a real political environment, and it's when you see in the press sometimes as well. The players get made out to be the bad guys most of the time, and the club never get made. If a club wants to get rid of a player, it's never the headline. It's not like, oh, the club wants to get rid of whoever. It's always the player wants to leave, is requested to leave, and this and that. That's because the club cover their own backs, and it's always a player that gets ridiculed. So yeah, it's very political, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that I don't agree with. That's for sure.
Do you miss the buzz of match day?
Mm. I love the buzz of match day. I don't miss training day today. I enjoy training, but I stay in my routine now. I do my gym sessions. I play five-a-side 2-3 times a week. I've got a football tournament this weekend. And I love playing football. Absolutely love it. And yeah, I mean, that match day feeling, the build up, the emotion, the atmosphere around the ground is absolutely amazing. And it's really tough to replicate that. So I miss match day. I'd be lying if I said I didn't.
And how did your career take a turn into more nutrition perspectives? Is there anything that you were interested in towards that end that really gave you this intrinsic drive to focus on nutrition and supporting people for education? And you mentioned obviously self-development and working on yourself and understanding yourself. I think that's kind of been a key aspect throughout your career, but more importantly, coming towards the end of your playing days and thinking about other things. Is there a reason why this was the route for you? Was there a moment that was a bit of a light bulb moment where you thought, okay, this is what I want to do now?
Yeah, I didn't know it at the time, but at 26 years old, when I got promoted to the championship with Bournemouth, I did a 18-module diploma in nutrition on fueling for performance and recovery, and most of all, importantly, overall health and well-being. And when I started implementing changes, the reason I did it is because I wanted to try and gain an edge, because I'd never tested myself at championship level before. I got released from clubs on numerous occasions from lower leagues. So I was like, I'm in the championship now. I want to stay here and climb above and beyond. So I just got, I think Arsene Wenger with his Arsenal team, he implemented nutrition changes with his team, and they just went from strength to strength. And since changing small things in my daily life, sticking to whole foods, not eating ultra processed foods, and cooking from scratch, and just making sure I had enough fuel in my body, it took my game to the next level. I was running by 13K as opposed to 11. So there was a massive difference in my running days. So my high speed running was better. Sprint speed was better. Recovery was a lot quicker. My mental clarity and mood was a lot better at home. So that diploma I did was an absolute game changer. And then I just went on to educate myself further. And just before I retired, I did another with another qualification that specializes in athletic performance and weight management. And I just keep digging deeper, and I love listening to podcasts and just trying to expand my knowledge. And I try and surround myself with a lot more knowledgeable people than myself as well, just to try and improve and self-develop. And um, it just, when I was at QPR, I set up my Instagram page, 3D Footballer, just to try and help inspire others to eat well, to cook, the food at home from scratch, and whether it be recovery tips, ice baths, whether it be focusing on the mindset, visualization, just everything linked to well-being. And it kind of caught on, and I slowly began to get a bigger following. And I just feel like if I'm making a difference in people's lives by posting something and helping inspire people, then that's what I'm here for. At the end of the day, we can earn all the money in the world, but if you don't feel like you've got that reason to get up every morning and make a difference, then um, what's the point? You want to make a difference in people's lives. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that part of it at the moment.
How has your nutrition changed from your elite playing days to now? Is there a differences that you've seen? And you mentioned the values and the protocols and of eating clean and no ultra processed foods. Is there a difference that you've done based on now that you are not at that high intensity and training every day that has differed to who you are today? Can you kind of relate to that?
Yeah, it's much better now, and I'm more mindful. I mean, if I've had a really busy day, like I've done gym in the morning before I start work, and I've got five-a-side in the evening, then I know myself, my body's going to require more carbohydrates, and I know the amounts my body needs, because every individual is different. Some might require more than others. But when I'm not as intense and I'm just doing gym and no cardio, I keep my carbs really low, high protein, high fat, and sticking to whole foods as much as possible. And you don't have to go overboard with carbs. You see people smashing food down and ridiculously having, 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day. It's just about knowing what your body needs to thrive. And you look at your Mo Salahs of the world, your Ronaldos, you can see from a distance that their longevity is, they tick as many boxes as possible. And I know Mo Salah, he's not high carb. I think he had a little bit of banter with, was it Robertson on a podcast. He did an interview with him, and he said, "What are you eating there?" And he had two pints of toast on his breakfast plate. He said, "You shouldn't be eating that." And Mo Salah's very much like fruit, protein, fats, making sure he eats all foods as much as possible. So yeah, I'm just really mindful of including loads of protein, loads of colour, and just trying to feed my gut. And if you're feeling healthy from the inside, you're going to perform on the outside, in my eyes.
What are your thoughts on like supermarkets in general? So, if you go into a supermarket, there's rows of coloured, saturated fat foods, high sugar foods, alcohol, and you mentioned eating clean and having that knowledge on how to eat clean. How do you maybe inform someone around the right foods to eat? Because even in the simple sense, then you mentioned salad and eating bread, and some people might go, well, bread's not that bad, but obviously from a performance level, too much carbohydrate might impact certain aspects. So what are your thoughts on maybe the consumerism nature of foods being so accessible badly, but obviously we want to try and eat as healthily as possible?
Yeah, the scary thing is around 60% of supermarket foods are ultra processed and processed. So working your way around the outsides of the aisles is probably the best bet. You around your outside, you've got your fruit, your veg, your meat, and then at the other side, you've probably got your eggs, your breads. But I think when you're choosing bread, it's not all bad. There are some really bad ones on the market. If you've got a bread that lasts, 7 to 10 days, the reality is it's probably got some preservatives in or something that's sustaining the life of that bread, and it's not going to be good for you. So get in, to the bakery section where your bread's going to last 2 or 3 days, and it's going to be a lot more beneficial because your ingredients are going to be flour, water, salt, give or take. That's what bread should be made out of. You don't need an ingredients list as long as your arm for any products. And what I encourage people to do is don't worry about your greens, your reds, and your ambers on the front. Flip it to the back, read the ingredients, and if there's any of them ingredients you're not familiar with or you're unsure about, do a little bit of research and make your own decision on whether you want to put that in your body. Because if you look at nuts, for example, so nuts are one of the healthiest foods on the planet, and you see the front and it's red, 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 red. but our body knows how to absorb that one ingredient. So walnuts, almonds, cashews, whatever it may be. Yeah, they might be high in fat, protein, carbs, calories, but our body knows how to absorb it, and they're really beneficial. There's loads of health benefits that come with it. So buying produce that has less than 5 ingredients in, I always use as a ballpoint figure. Obviously, you might get some that have, you might buy chicken that's got loads of different spice and herbs on it, then yeah, that's fine. But if there's any of them ingredients that you're not aware of, then just be really mindful is my advice.
And what would a cheat meal look like for you then, Mark?
A cheat meal. So if you're having a cheat meal, if you're out and about, yeah, it's completely different. But if I have a cheat meal and I've cooked it from scratch myself, if I'm making a burger, then I just make my own stuff. I'll rather than buying the burger pre-packed, which the reality is a lot of burgers have got either it's usually sodium nitrate or a preservative in that makes that not very good for your body. Just buy your mince, mix it with some, an egg and whatever spice you want, and then you can make your own burger at home. And then you can have your oven roasted chips or whatever. But if I'm out and about, completely different. If there's a sticky toffee pudding and custard on the menu, I'm a bit of a sucker one, to be honest. And I go off the 90-10 rule. So 90%, 95%, sometimes I'm a little bit obsessive, as my wife always tells me. We'll go off that rule of being on it as much as possible. Then you're allowed a little bit of leeway here and there. Because at the end of the day, if you're on holiday, you're not going to be 100% on it all the time. You never know what to put in your food. So yeah, if you want a little dessert here and there, but it depends on your goal as well. If you've got a specific goal and you want to reduce your body fat, you have got to be structured. You've got to, set good habits, good routines and stuff. But I always say it's not about perfection. It's about progression. You've just got to show small bits of progression every day to yourself.
Now, what about your thoughts on maybe intermittent fasting? Have you had a look at that? Is that something that you incorporate in your diet based on the times to rest during eating windows?
Yeah, it's great for cell regeneration and healing the body. And the longest I've ever done personally, it was a tough ask, to be honest, because I'm so active as well. I did 24 hours, which was tough, but it's really beneficial for the body. I usually do overnight around 14 hours, 14, 16 hours, which I like to have my breakfast around my last snack around 8 p.m., 8:30, something like that, 2 hours before bed. And then I'll not eat my breakfast probably until around 10 o'clock, something like that. It depends on my schedule, of course. If I'm leaving the house early, then I'll prep something the night before. If I'm in the car, I'll pack me cool bag with ice bricks and I'll eat en route, that kind of thing. So I'm always prepping in advance and just making sure it's sustainable as well, because a lot of people get overwhelmed with making small changes and like, I haven't got the time and stuff. But if you make 3 or 4 meals in advance, I always say eat your dinner for breakfast. So my dinners is completely random. I'll have leftover chicken, I'll have sweet potato, I'll have broccoli, and I'll just scramble some eggs in the morning. It's a 2-minute breakfast. You just got to reheat your dinner meal. And if we're mindful of that preparation, it makes a huge difference.
Mm. So what does the future look like for you then, Mark? So you mentioned obviously your playing career and this intrinsic drive within food and nutrition and well-being, supporting people and sharing the stories. Is there anything that you want to see kind of transpire in the next few years that you've really got your eyes on in terms of making those, like you said, those small kind of progressional points to become an expert in something? Is there anything that you have got your eyes set on based on that?
Yeah, I'm really passionate about getting into schools and businesses and improving health in sedentary people, because the reality is there's a lot of busy people who spend a lot of time behind computers, they're in lessons, school, and the food they get is just quick and easy and ultra processed, and it's not very good for the body. So being able to go in and educate and put on workshops and try and help inspire others who aren't as active is a big passion of mine, because whether you're an athlete, a businessman, cleaner, whatever your job role is, we all want to feel good about ourselves. We want to be productive. We want to have that mental clarity and just that feel good factor. So yeah, it's a big passion of mine to try and, just help as many people as possible, whether it be in this country, abroad. And with my football, I was a million miles away from playing in the Premier League at 16, 17 years old. And I got there. So who's to say I can't take the foodie footballer business as far as I'd see in my mind and create that reality with mindset.
Absolutely. What we'll do, Mark, is we'll put the links to your Instagram page and other details in the description. So if anyone's listening or watching this podcast, they can go and check out that in the description. Thank you for joining the channel, Mark. I just want to wish you well. I want to thank you for opening up and elaborating on your time at Bournemouth and all the other football clubs, the transitions that you've had. And hopefully people can relate to that, whether that's in other areas, like you said, where sport and football can be relatable to other mindsets in other disciplines. And good luck with your new passions. Good luck with your football tournament on Saturday, and I wish you all the best in your adventure, mate.
Appreciate that, mate. Thank you. Thanks for having me on as well, and wishing you all the best as well with everything you are doing. Appreciate it.